I'm passionate about protecting our heritage and our environment, and I'm tired of inappropriate development in Tasmania. I would like to set out some very clear guidelines that send a message to developers that we want a certain type of environment here, we want a certain type of place to live, and so I would develop a planning bill that had very clear guidelines on what was appropriate and what was not appropriate. The community should not have to spend endless resources trying to object to inappropriate development. We should be working together to design developments that are appropriate and that will take Tasmania forward.
Thank you, Wendy. Peter.
Thanks, Mark. There are many issues that could come from the upper house down to the lower house, a lot. And I think one of the most important ones is the Royal Hobart Hospital. What are we going to do about it? We don't need another hospital. We don't need, there won't be one built in my lifetime, I can assure you of that. We don't have the funds. The biggest problem with the Royal Hobart Hospital is the staffing situation. I've been to the coalface, I've spoken to the doctors, the nurses, the orderlies, the staff members. I think the Royal Hobart Hospital is very top heavy, not in medical staff, administration staff. The Royal Hobart Hospital must be fixed, and that's the staffing. They have a staffing crisis there. Tonight on the news, we had, the Liberal Party said we had 4,094 people waiting for surgery. The Labor Party, the Labor Party come back and said we had 2,058. Well, I think that's 2,058 too many. It doesn't matter how many we've got waiting for surgery. We must try and fix it. The hospital itself is not the issue. The staffing problem is the issue. And that's what I would be sending down from the upper house. We must research and do research on how to fix this huge problem, which is affecting all Tasmanians, not just people in Pembroke or in Clarence, but the whole of Tasmania. We need to fix this problem, and we need to fix it fast. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Sharon.
Well, I'm very, very new in this political arena, but there are a few issues close to my heart because I am a survivor of breast cancer, so I would really want to push down this bill, the private member's bill on euthanasia. And the other two issues which are close to my heart is, of course, education and health. Education, we need, David Bartlett, when he became the Premier, he talked about how we're going to be a clever, and I think clever is not enough. We have to be intellectual, not just clever. And in order to do that, we have to put a lot of hard yards and hard work into raising the level of education in Tasmania. And the other one will be health, as the other candidates have put forward. Health is so underfunded. We need to put more attention, more money into health and education. Thank you.
Thanks, Sharon. Richard.
There's a couple of issues that I believe that the Legislative Council should have probably dealt with more thoroughly than what they did over the recent times. And I suppose it's been caught up in the culture that the Legislative Council is a house of review and really goes and reviews the legislation from the lower house, and then obviously can amend, and then if it does reject it, then it's basically unconstitutional. But the fact of the matter is that the influence of the Legislative Council, and it is regarded as one of the most powerful upper houses in the world, in my view, has not utilised its power to the extent to which it should have. And a couple of examples come to mind is that, and it affects, I believe, everybody, and that is the increase in power charges that's occurred of recent times. And secondly, the metro transport system. Now, it's very easy for the government of the day to say it's left to the government watchdog or the regulator to make sure that that is meeting, or is that the actual movement in power or transport prices is moving with the times. But that is looked at from a perspective which I think is taken from a bureaucratic viewpoint rather than from what the community can afford. And I would have thought that the independence of the upper house, and again the independent person being free from the party pressures that would exist on that person if they belong to a political party, either directly or indirectly, that person, that independent person, can initiate a bill to actually send it back for further consideration and for further assessment in relation to whether or not those power charges or those increase in transport metro fees is appropriate. And I don't think that's happened. And I believe that the person who is independent and a member of the Legislative Council has that right and has that ability to do it. And I think that I would be one that would pursue that, because I believe it affects everybody, particularly in the times when power and transport are very much part and parcel of our day-to-day system.
Thank you, Richard. James?
Louise, a community cannot achieve its potential unless there is honest and competent governance. An independent commission against corruption is called for and also regrettably needed. The first thing, or the first bill that I would move if elected, would be an independent commission against corruption.
Thank you, James. Back to the panel. Michelle Higgins, your second question, please, for our candidates tonight.
Thank you. I'd like to pick up on what Richard has just mentioned. Certainly there are a lot of people who are upset with the changes in metro bus timetables and routes, plus the increases in fares. And I guess I'd like to hear from all the candidates if they could give me their views on what they would do about the transport to the city and within Pembroke, please.
John?
Thank you. Yes, Metro certainly has raised a hornet's nest out there, and I think the Alderman here would agree that we've received many requests that the services and the price charges in Metro Metro's doing what they want to do, and they're not supplying the school buses that they used to, and this is causing a lot of frustration. And of course, people now are leaving earlier, getting home later, and really it was done with a lack of consultation. That's one of the issues. Now, when you say transport, I mean, I'm just not thinking of Pembroke. I'm not thinking of Clarence. I would like to see a whole new transport system. What I would like to see, and this is Tasmania-wide, what I would like to see is us invest in very fast trains, like in Japan, where during the peak hour they can be commuter trains, but then later on during the day they can be transport trains, so we can get some of these trucks off the highways, some of the cars off the highways. But that's a 20-year plan, and I don't know if I'll ever see it, but that's something I'd like to see, because that will help. What we could do in Pembroke, obviously, if Metro had actually went out and consulted, they probably would have found where they could have had a very efficient system. What I'm finding is people will not use public transport, because what happens, we'll either dump them in the mall in town, and they've got to wait round with undesirable characters at times, and this is what they don't like. If you had a transport system where you knew you only had to virtually wait 5 minutes and you're off again, I'm sure people would use a public transport system. But it's got to run on time every day. Every day. Now, you know, I espouse, when I was in Japan, geez, everything virtually ran on time. You could virtually set your watch to it. And why we cannot do it here, I have no idea. I'm sure we could if Metro really wanted to try hard, because that's the frustration I get, that people are just lobbed and they wait and they wait and they wait for their next bus. I believe if this system was improved, it would certainly help. And I think Metro's at fault there, because I think we can run a much better and efficient transport system.